Wow, what a story. But before we dive into what happens next, I want to hear from you. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. I love seeing how far our stories travel. And if you enjoyed this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because tomorrow I've got something truly special for you. You won't want to miss it. See you in the next one. The air outside Buckingham Palace was crisp, the early morning sun casting a golden glow over the historic gates. Tourists gathered along the barriers, snapping pictures, chatting excitedly, and waiting for the changing of the guard. Among them was Jacob Miller, a 35-year-old Silicon Valley executive, standing with his colleague near the front of the crowd. He had come to London for business, but after a week of disappointing meetings and a deal slipping through his fingers, frustration gnawed at him. His carefully curated life, his career, his marriage, his reputation felt like it was unraveling, and today he needed to feel in control. Across the courtyard stood Staff Sergeant Ryan Carter, 32 years old, motionless in his red tunic and bearskin hat. A former U.S. Marine, Carter had completed 3 tours in Iraq before transitioning to ceremonial duties in the British Royal Guard. To the tourists, he was just another symbol of tradition, silent, still, and unshakable. But beneath the uniform, he was a soldier, carrying the weight of war and the ghosts of fallen comrades. Jacob smirked as he pulled out his phone, recording a short video. "Look at this guy," he said, nudging his colleague. "Doesn't even blink. I wonder if he's even real." A few tourists nearby chuckled, but others shifted uncomfortably. Emboldened by the attention, Jacob stepped closer, voice growing louder. "They say these guys aren't allowed to react, no matter what. Just part of the decor, right?" His words dripped with arrogance. Ryan remained perfectly still, his training kicking in. Ignore the noise. Hold your position. Stay in control. But Jacob wasn't done. He crossed the barrier, ignoring the gasps from the crowd and the immediate warnings from palace security. "Come on, man," he said, reaching out toward Ryan's uniform. "What happens if I just—" Before his fingers could touch the polished brass button, everything changed. In an instant, Ryan moved with precision, his combat instincts taking over. In one fluid motion, he hooked Jacob's arm, pivoted, and took him down. The crowd gasped as Jacob hit the stone pavement, the weight of Ryan's knee pressing into his back, his arm locked in place. Silence hung in the air. The man who had mocked a soldier now lay face down on royal grounds, learning firsthand why these guards aren't just for show. The crowd stood frozen, eyes wide, phones raised, the air thick with tension. Just moments ago, Jacob Miller had been grinning, taunting, riding the high of an audience hanging on his every word. Now he was face down on the cold stone pavement, the full weight of Staff Sergeant Ryan Carter's knee pressing into his back. His arm was locked at an angle that promised pain if he struggled. The humiliation hit first, then the pain. Then the rage. "Get off me!" Jacob wheezed, struggling to catch his breath. His face scraped against the unforgiving stone. He could hear the murmur of the crowd, the gasps, the rapid snapping of pictures. Ryan didn't say a word. His grip was firm, controlled. Not cruel, but absolute. His breathing was steady, but inside his body buzzed with adrenaline, the same rush he'd felt in combat zones halfway across the world. The moment Jacob had reached for his uniform, something had triggered deep within him. The training, the instincts, the need for control in the face of a potential threat. It all snapped into place before he could think. Palace security swarmed in, rushing toward them. "Sergeant, release him," a commanding voice ordered. It took Ryan half a second too long to respond. His grip lingered, muscles still braced for a fight that wasn't coming. Then, with precise discipline, he let go and rose to his feet, his face once again a mask of control. Jacob scrambled up, clutching his wrist, his breath ragged with fury. His custom-tailored suit was scuffed, his pride shattered. "What the hell was that?" he snapped, his voice cracking under the weight of embarrassment and disbelief. A pair of Metropolitan police officers stepped forward. "Sir, we need you to come with us," one of them said, voice clipped and professional. "Me?" Jacob barked, his face twisting. "He's the one who attacked me. I didn't do anything." One of the officers glanced at the tourists still recording, the security footage capturing every angle, and then back at Jacob. "Sir, you breached a restricted area," he said coolly. And you ignored multiple warnings. We need to sort this out at the station. Jacob's heart pounded. His career, his reputation, his entire carefully constructed life, all of it was slipping through his fingers. And somewhere in the crowd, a video was already uploading, about to change both of their lives forever. Jacob sat in the back of the police car, his mind racing. His wrist throbbed where the guard, no, the soldier, had restrained him. His suit was ruined, his pride shattered, and the glow of dozens of phone screens outside the window told him exactly what was happening. The video was already out there. Viral. His humiliation would be everywhere before he even had a chance to explain himself. Across town, Staff Sergeant Ryan Carter sat in a stark, windowless office deep inside Buckingham Palace. His uniform was pristine, but his hands rested rigidly on his knees, a faint tremor in his fingers. Across from him, Captain Mark Reeves studied him carefully, his face unreadable. "Do you understand what you've done, Sergeant?" Reeves's voice was calm, but heavy. Ryan stared straight ahead. "He breached the barrier. He reached for my uniform. I assessed a threat and responded accordingly, sir." Reeves sighed, running a hand over his face. "Ryan, do you have any idea what's happening out there? That video is spreading like wildfire. The press is already painting you as the rogue royal guard." He tossed a tablet onto the desk, where a headline flashed: "American executive tackled by palace guard, excessive force or justified action." Ryan didn't flinch. He'd seen worse. The media could spin whatever story they wanted. But what made his stomach tighten wasn't the public scrutiny. It was the fact that for half a second, he'd hesitated before letting go. "Do you want to tell me why it took you a full 5 seconds to release him?" Reeves pressed. Ryan clenched his jaw. "I was processing." "Processing." Reeves leaned forward. "Processing what, Sergeant?" Ryan swallowed hard. The sound of the crowd, the way Jacob had moved, the tone of his voice, it had all blurred together into something else. Something older. A different place, a different man, a different fight. "Iraq," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "For a moment, I was back there." Reeves's face softened slightly, but his next words hit hard. "That's a problem, Carter. You're not in Iraq. You're outside Buckingham Palace. And tomorrow morning, you're facing a military review board that will decide if you still belong here." Ryan's stomach dropped. 9 years of service, one mistake, everything was on the line. And somewhere across London, Jacob Miller was already plotting his next move. Jacob sat alone in his London hotel room, the curtains drawn tight, his laptop open in front of him. The video had exploded, millions of views overnight, his face plastered across news articles and social media feeds. American executive taken down by royal guard? Did he deserve it? The headlines were everywhere. Some people called it justice. Others called it excessive force. His inbox was a war zone. His company's HR department, his lawyer, and even a BBC producer wanting him to appear in a live interview. An opportunity to tell his side. Jacob exhaled sharply. His side? What side? He was the guy who got embarrassed in front of the whole world. The guy who got tackled for acting like an idiot. His career was hanging by a thread. His wife wasn't answering his calls. And he was one boardroom meeting away from being fired. But then there was Carter, the so-called rogue guard. The military review board was convening today. Reports were already circulating that he could be removed from duty or even dishonorably discharged. Jacob leaned back, staring at the ceiling. The guy had tackled him, made a fool of him, cost him everything. Maybe it was time to return the favor. He picked up his phone and dialed. "Yeah," his lawyer answered. Jacob hesitated, fingers tightening around the device. "I want to press charges, assault, excessive force, whatever sticks." A pause. Then, "You sure about this? Because if we take this public, it won't just be about him. They're going to drag you through the mud, too." Jacob's jaw tightened. "I don't care." Across the city, Ryan Carter sat in a stiff chair, his dress uniform crisp, his face impassive as 5 high-ranking officers stared him down. "Sergeant Carter," the senior officer began, "do you regret your actions?" Ryan's pulse pounded in his ears. He thought about Iraq, about his team, about the split-second decision that had changed everything. "Yes, sir," he said finally. "I regret losing control." The officers exchanged looks. The senior officer nodded. "We'll reconvene shortly with our decision." As Ryan was escorted out, his phone vibrated in his pocket, a missed call from an unknown number. Jacob Miller was coming for him, and this fight was far from over. Ryan sat at the edge of his cot in the barracks, staring at the phone in his hand. The Military Review Board had handed down their verdict: removal from ceremonial duties, mandatory PTSD treatment, and reassignment pending evaluation. It wasn't a discharge, but it felt damn close. 9 years of service, reduced to a question mark. His thumb hovered over the missed call notification. Unknown number. Probably a reporter, maybe a lawyer. Either way, it didn't matter. His career was already in free fall. Across London, Jacob Miller adjusted his tie in the mirror of the BBC studio's green room. The last few days had been a whirlwind. His company put him on indefinite leave, his wife still wasn't speaking to him, and the entire world had an opinion about him. But today he got to control the narrative. A producer knocked. "Mr. Miller, we're ready for you." He followed her down the brightly lit corridor, his mind racing. Stick to the plan. His lawyer had prepared a statement. He had been humiliated, hurt, traumatized. He was the victim. Carter was the aggressor. Simple, clean, easy to digest. Then he walked onto the set and froze. Across from him, already seated under the glaring lights, was Ryan Carter, the guard, the soldier, the man who had taken him down in front of millions. Jacob's heart pounded. They never said he'd be here. The host smiled at the camera. "Tonight, we bring together two men at the center of an international debate. For the first time since their viral confrontation, they will meet face to face." Jacob's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just a media stunt. It was a reckoning. Ryan didn't move, didn't flinch. He just stared, eyes unreadable, posture perfect. Jacob swallowed hard and sat down. The red light on the camera blinked, live. The host turned to Ryan. "Sergeant Carter, let's start with you. What happened that day?" Ryan exhaled slowly, his grip tightening just slightly on the armrest. He could stick to the script, or he could finally tell the truth. Either way, the next words out of his mouth would change everything. This story isn't just about what happened outside Buckingham Palace. It's about two men, two lives, and one moment that changed everything. But now, I want to hear from you. Do you think Ryan Carter was justified in his actions, or did he take it too far? Was Jacob Miller just another reckless tourist, or was he dealing with something deeper that led him to cross the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm reading every single one. Let's talk about respect, authority, and the split-second decisions that can change lives. If you've ever experienced a moment where emotions took over, tell us about it. How did it shape you? And if you found this story compelling, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because tomorrow I've got another powerful story that you won't want to miss. Trust me, it's going to get even more intense. So go ahead, let's start a conversation. I can't wait to hear what you think.